After Brandon and his girlfriend Rachel witnessed that massacre at Disney World, nothing in their world was ever the same. It wasn't just the violence that haunted him. It was the way reality itself seemed to twist, like some unseen hand was warping the familiar into something monstrous. The memory of it was seared into his mind. The creature that had rampaged through the park looked just like Mickey Mouse, only its proportions were subtly wrong, its cartoon grin stretched too wide, its eyes black and bottomless. The horror hit when it pulled out a bomb, right there in front of everyone, as if it was part of some sick show. Brandon could still taste the smoke in the back of his throat, could still feel the heat from the explosion as he and Rachel sprinted, dodging debris and bodies. Behind them, the happiest place on earth was reduced to fire and ash. They'd survived, but at a cost. Everyone else was gone. Survival, Brandon quickly learned, wasn't the same as living. Rachel hadn't spoken a single word since. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat, staring at nothing, her hands trembling ever so slightly as if she were haunted by ghosts only she could see. It was like something inside her had snapped, leaving an empty shell behind. Brandon tried to be strong, holding their pain on his shoulders, but the images kept looping in his head, the twisted Mickey, the explosion, the blank look on Rachel's face. It weighed on him, crushing and relentless, and he knew he couldn't do it alone. That's why he reached out to Ash Curry. Ash was more than just a friend. She was the kind of person who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. Their history went deep. Back during the nightmare at Nickelodeon Studios, when that deranged version of SpongeBob and his army of freakish cartoon rejects tried to take over, Ash had been right there with him, never hesitating. Brandon trusted her with his life. So, when he explained what had happened at Disney World and asked if she could look after Rachel for a while, Ash didn't blink. She wrapped Rachel in a gentle hug and whispered,
"Don't worry, I'll take care of her. And if you need backup, remember Luigi Kid, Markiplier, Korix Kenshin. We're all just a call away. You don't have to face this on your own."
Hearing that comforted Brandon, but deep down he knew that fixing Rachel, getting her back to who she'd been, was something he might never be able to do. He left Ash's apartment feeling hollow, desperate for some kind of normalcy. He drove aimlessly, highways blurring into each other, city lights giving way to empty stretches of road. Eventually, hunger forced him to stop at a lonely McDonald's glowing in the darkness. Inside, he tried to pretend life was ordinary again. He ordered his usual, a Big Mac meal, fries, Coke, but the taste turned to ash in his mouth. The world felt off, like he was walking through a dream he couldn't wake from. That's when he noticed the clown. At first, Brandon almost laughed. It was Ronald McDonald, but the costume looked mangled, the makeup smeared into a grotesque parody. The clown's smile was more of a leer, his eyes glittering with something cold and hateful. Brandon's unease spiked when a little boy, no older than 7, approached the clown and said with childlike bluntness,
"You are not Ronald McDonald. You're uglier."
The clown's plastic grin vanished, replaced by a look so dark and venomous it sent chills down Brandon's spine. Without warning, the clown's hands shot out, grabbing the boy's head. In one swift, horrifying motion, he twisted. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the restaurant, silencing every conversation. The boy's mother shrieked and fainted, collapsing to the floor. The clown's laughter rose, sharp and shrill, bouncing off the walls. Brandon's instincts screamed at him to act, but fear rooted him in place. Ronald's gaze met his, and the clown wagged a finger, taunting him, daring him to intervene. Chaos erupted. Customers screamed, chairs overturned, trays clattered to the ground. Ronald grabbed a vat of boiling grease from behind the counter and dumped it over a man trying to crawl away. The man's screams were short-lived, drowned out by the sounds of pure panic. Brandon felt rage boil up inside him.
"You sick-ass clown!"
he shouted, voice cracking with fury and horror. Ronald grinned, lips peeling back to reveal yellow, rotting teeth. He yanked out an oversized knife and drove it again and again into the boy's mother, waking her just long enough for her to feel every stab. The brutality was overwhelming. Brandon couldn't take it anymore. He surged forward, intent on tackling the clown, but Ronald caught him mid-stride and hurled him through a plate glass window. The impact knocked the wind out of him. Lying on the concrete outside, Brandon watched through the shattered glass as the clown pressed a button. Suddenly, the air was filled with the hiss and roar of boiling grease flooding the restaurant. People banged on the doors and windows, desperate to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The screams grew muffled, then stopped altogether. In the aftermath, the silence was total, an awful, unnatural void. Shaking, Brandon stood and stared at the carnage. Another massacre. More innocent lives snuffed out in seconds. He felt numb, his grief and guilt twisting into something cold and sharp. This was the second time he'd faced one of these monsters, and both times he'd failed to save anyone. He didn't know where these creatures came from, or why they hid behind the faces of childhood icons only to unleash such horror. But now, the need to understand, to fight back, burned in his chest. He looked up at the night sky, knowing he couldn't do this alone. He would need Ash, and the others, Luigi Kid, Markiplier, Korix Genshin. He would need all the help he could get. Because whatever force was behind these nightmares, it was only getting started. And Brandon was finally ready to dive into the darkness, and find out just how deep this rabbit hole really went.